What's going on, guys? Brad Messersmith here of the Fantasy Golf Degenerates, bringing you an expert model breakdown. I am going to go through and break down the model that I have uploaded on the fantasyfanatics.com. Make sure to become a premium member so that you can get access to all of the tools I use to create my model and create your own. Definitely some cool stuff on the site. If you haven't already been there to check it out, make sure to get over there and do that. So let's go ahead and get right into it. We are at the cheat sheet, which is kind of the home base as I call it. You're going to want to start basically all of your analysis here at the cheat sheet. You can see it's got players, it's got salaries, and it's got a ton of information. So the key stats that I used for my model. First and foremost, the heaviest rated stat is par 4 scoring, which shows up in the trends tool in a big way. If you have not been to the trends tool, it's a great way to figure out what stats belong in your stats model and figure out how much to rate them and how much to weight them, and basically to understand how you should create your model if you don't already know. So make sure to go check out the trends tool if you have not already. Very, very useful stuff. So par 4 scoring, as you can see in the top left of your screen, there's some tournament details, some information about the course. You can see it is a par 70, and that means there is going to be a lot of par 4s. Basically more par 4s than usual, and par 4 scoring shows up in a kind of a big way in the trends tool. So par 4 scoring is the heaviest weight stat this week. Second heaviest weights are bogey avoidance and scrambling, which both show up in the trends tool, and kind of makes sense. I mean, basically, there's going to be a lot of birdies out on the course. If you're going to be making big numbers this week, you can't expect to compete. So you're really going to need to avoid those big numbers on a course like this. And scrambling makes sense because there are very narrow fairways. They're difficult to hit fairways this week. A couple of the fairways, a couple of the holes are the hardest to hit fairways on tour. So guys are going to be missing greens, and there are a lot of greenside bunkers. So there's going to be a lot of sand play near the green. Guys are going to have to scramble, get up and down for par, avoid those big numbers, like I said. So scrambling there makes sense. Strokes gained tee to green. If you follow these videos moving forward each week, you will most likely see strokes gained tee to green in the model. This week I don't have strokes gained putting, but that will show up quite a bit as well. My model is geared more towards GPPs, and putting is a variable statistic, which means from week to week putting stats are going to change in a big way. Even the worst putters on tour can be the best putters for 4 rounds. So we don't want to weight putting stats or things like scoring average, which I also have in this model, too highly, because we don't honestly really care. We're looking for guys who can perform well over 4 events, not guys who are going to be the best scorers on tour. And as such, you will see some of the guys who are lower priced and not as consistent show up at the top of your model. So definitely a good way to differentiate your model and differentiate the players that are going to show up in your model is by weighting things like scoring average, strokes gained tee to green a little bit lower than you normally would. So those are the stats I have in my model. I'm going to take you through and talk about a couple of guys who show up at the top and at the bottom of my model. First and foremost, Charles Howell III. If you haven't already heard about this guy, he's going to be very highly owned. I expect him probably to be the highest owned player on the slate, but he is ranked number 1 in my overall model, and you should take a look at his course history. He is 13 for 13 on cuts dating back to 2004, has a slew of top 3, top 5 finishes, top 10 finishes, second place 2 or 3 times, third place 2 or 3 times. He has upside, which means it makes him viable for GPPs. I'm going to be playing more than the field in terms of ownership percentage of Charles Howell III this week. Not sure exactly how much I'm going to end up having of him, but it will definitely be more of the field because I think there's just enough consistency and upside there to make him viable. Definitely a cash game option. He will make every one of my cash lineups as well. Make sure to go and check out Kenny's cash game model video as well if you haven't already, where he breaks down his favorite cash game players and the stats he uses in his model for cash game purposes. Most likely he will talk about Charles Howell III. I'm going to go out on a limb and take a gander that he might mention him. So make sure to get over there and check that out as well. Next on the list, you can see Russell Henley and Mark Leishman both seem to fit the course pretty well statistically. I'm a little bit concerned about the course history of Russell Henley. He did win here in 2013, but has not really had any stellar performances since then. He's not necessarily, really neither of these guys are necessarily the guys who strike me as high upside guys. I think they're both more kind of consistent players. Definitely makes sense in cash for sure. We'll have quite a few of probably both of them. Definitely Russell Henley in GPP formats, but probably we'll have a little bit of both. I think the recent form is good enough on both to leave them in some pretty good consideration, and we'll leave it at that. Moving down a little bit, you can see Jordan Spieth is the highest salary guy who's ranked really highly. Makes sense with the scrambling we talked about, but the guy is hot. I mean, he's coming in as one of the hottest players on tour. Statistically makes perfect sense for this course. He has pretty poor course history when you look at the spreadsheet here, but it's only one miscut, if I'm not mistaken. So, and that is correct. One miscut back in 2014. So, I'm not really too worried about just a single data point there. I'm going to kind of overlook that and hope that other people kind of overreact to having one miscut here, and we'll take him and know that his course fit is good and that the pricing is soft this week. So, trying to fit somebody in who's 11.5 should be no problem with a couple of these guys we talked about. There's two or three guys here that I think make a lot of sense GPP-wise. Siwoo Kim is not being talked about a whole lot, does not have great recent form coming in, but his course history is pretty good with, again, one data point. I'm not sure how much people are going to overreact to that or not, but he does have a fourth place finish here, which means to me he's got what it takes to have some upside here. I'm not really worried about it if he doesn't win here every year. Obviously, we're looking for GPP guys, so there's going to be some fluctuations and variance in the results, and we have to kind of be good with that. But key stats line up pretty well, and I'm hoping he's going to be pretty low owned with his recent form being a little bit shaky. And we'll leave it at that. So Russell Knox, I think, is not really being talked about as much as he probably should. He's sort of secured himself as kind of an elite player, I think, or one of the higher kind of more elite players on tour, especially recently. His price tag is too low, I think, at 8,100. Projects out pretty well. Again, not necessarily any stellar course history. He does have a 13th place finish, but I'm hoping the miscuts will keep people off of him and keep his ownership low, which makes him a great GPP play with clearly some upside. I mean, he's shown the propensity to play well in even the toughest fields. So Russell Knox is a great play this week, especially if it looks like his ownership is going to be low, which at this point I think it does. Last couple of guys I want to talk about. Webb Simpson at 6,800 is certainly underpriced. Still not sure exactly what his popularity is going to look like. I have him projected pretty low, which I think needs to be adjusted. 4.5% ownership as of right now. I think I'm probably going to bump that up to something like maybe 12 or 13%. I think he's going to end up being one of the more popular guys in this lower price range. Obviously, he's a kind of recognizable name, especially when he's surrounded by some other guys. The only thing I think that is going to keep his ownership lower than it should be is the next guy I want to talk about, which is Jerry Kelly. If you haven't checked out this guy's course history, you should. It's very elite course history. I rostered a lot of him last year when I won the GPP. He was on my lineup. Definitely somebody you want to be at least considering in GPPs. You can obviously see by his course history, we've got a lot of top fives, a lot of top tens. He's got some good upside. Normally a fairly consistent player. He makes his way into my cash lineups from week to week quite a bit. Not a ton, but depending on the event and the course. But definitely somebody you want to be at least considering this week. And since he's the same price as Webb Simpson, I think Webb Simpson makes an interesting pivot who may be lower owned than he probably should be with how low his price is. So let's drop down to the bottom and take a look at some of the guys that the stats model does not like. I think the first one that stands out to me is Smiley Kaufman. He's a guy I'm going to be rostering either way, despite what the stats model says. Doesn't have any of the great key stats that we're looking for that really speak to him fitting the course perfectly. Definitely doesn't have any fantastic recent form, and the fact that he has no course history is going to keep people entirely off of him. I think we could see Smiley go under 5% owned, probably even quite a bit less than that. Right now, I've got him at 5.91%, but I think he's going to go basically overlooked in kind of a big way, and is a skilled golfer. I mean, we've seen him perform well on big stages, so somebody who can definitely be considered in GPPs despite what our stats model says because of the price and because of the low ownership. Cameron Smith is being talked about a little bit because of his recent form, which has been very solid. I'm not sure he's a guy I really particularly want to target a whole lot. I'll be taking a little clip of him, but not much. Stats don't really speak to him doing well here, and I'm not sure that he can sustain the performances that he's had recently. So somebody I'm going to just take a little bit of in case he does happen to continue his string of success, but probably won't be anybody I'm on in a big way. Fabian Gomez is the next guy I want to talk about at 8,100. I think he's a bit overpriced. Fabian was kind to me last year and helped me win the GPP during the Sony Open. My first GPP I took down. So kind of a soft spot in my heart with Fabian Gomez, but I don't think this is the week for Fabian Gomez. Obviously, he won here last year. Has had 4 made cuts here, but not really any stellar finishes outside of the win, and I'm not sure that I want to chase him. His ownership might be a little bit inflated because of the win last year, and I just don't think at 8,100 that price tag is too attractive to me. So somebody I'm going to be fading, and the model sort of helps me decide on that quite a bit. And then the last guy, I don't have a whole lot to say about, but we do have, let me find, where did he go? Justin Thomas, there he is, 10,500. One of the higher priced guys who's kind of ranked lower, kind of bottom middle of the pack here. I think that this is a good week to consider fading Justin Thomas. I've got him marked here to play right now. You can see the yellow tag next to him. I might have a little bit of him just in case he continues his run, but this course does not really set up or suit his game very well. There's tight fairways. It's difficult to hit fairways, and Justin Thomas is pretty well known at this point as a bomber. Kind of sprays the ball, although he's not the most inaccurate guy in the world, but certainly has his moments where he has a propensity to kind of make those big numbers, and you see that show up in his bogey avoidance and scrambling. So definitely not the week for me on Justin Thomas to really go all in. I don't think that you really want to chase a guy coming off a win who's in a spot like this where the course does not fit his game very well. So gonna probably take this opportunity to shorten my exposure on Justin Thomas more than I usually would. Kind of interesting. I didn't notice it before, but he does have a 6th place finish here, which is sort of surprising knowing how much of a lack of fit there is with his stats. But that's why we're playing GPPs, because anything can happen, and we're looking for guys with upside. So definitely gonna be playing a little bit of Justin Thomas, but not a ton. So that's gonna do it. If you guys have any questions or you want to take a look at my personal GPP model, make sure to get over to thefantasyfanatics.com, become a premium member. You can also reach out to me on Twitter at Brad Messersmith, Messer Smith. If you have any other questions or want to know about different golfers in my model, feel free to reach out to me. And last but not least, make sure to go check out the Fantasy Fanatics Strategy Center, where the Fantasy Golf Degenerates analysts are putting out articles basically on a daily basis. There's course breakdowns. There's all kinds of good stuff there. There are some premium tutorials that'll show you how to use the tools in the cheat sheet, how to generate lineups and build hundreds of lineups at the click of a button. So really good stuff at the Strategy Center. Make sure you don't miss out on any of the analysis, and we will catch you guys next time.